Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family, I'm cloud hired.
So I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glow Cloud team.
Welcome everyone. Today we are here to help you with your cloud computing career, enterprise architecture career, solution architect career, cloud architect career, or your first network architecture career. My name is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I've been an architect for now over 25 years. And I've held every role from a technical architect to a solution architect to a business architect to an enterprise architect. And I love architecture careers, and I'm here to help you build yours. So we're here to help you with your career. You know, I've been coaching people for more than 2 decades, helping them get their first tech job, get promoted in tech, ask their managers for raises and stock grants. And I can tell you that if you know what to do, it's so easy to get to your goals. For example, I was the principal architect in 2 years, not the usual 15 years. And it's because I knew what to do, I knew what management was looking for, and I knew what employers wanted, and I learned those things versus the things most of my peers were doing. 15 years later, the people I worked with were still stuck where they started. And they may have changed jobs 10 times, but they were still stuck. They never moved up. And that's because you have to be what the employer wants. You have to have the skills that the employers desire to truly get ahead. And that's why we're here to completely guide you to get to your actual goal and dream career. And let me tell you, Mark Twain said it best. He said, if you can make your vacation, otherwise known as holiday in certain parts of the world, your vocation or your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And while I did come from an internal medicine background, once I moved to tech, let me tell you, it was like people paid me for my hobby. It was like the really greatest thing ever. And I want you to all have a life like that. I want you to have a life where you can afford what you want and not even think about what things cost. You can go to work and actually enjoy your job. And when you come home, you're not going to be cranky with your family because you're going to be happy, excited, and enjoying your good time. So that's why we're here. So ask us your questions. Before we begin answering questions, I'll have my Chief Marketing Officer and close friend, Alonzo Coleman, welcome you all.
Well, everyone, it is always a pleasure to speak with you, to have you join us during your time. I know everyone may be busy working or maybe even some free time to get educated on how to become your best cloud architect career trajectory ever. We are here to help you. We are here to answer all your questions. We hope that you had them written down or somewhere stored in the back of your mind so that we can provide you a clear, succinct, detailed, experienced, and realistic expectation on how to become a cloud architect. So we are always excited to answer your questions. So let's lay them out on the chat, or if you want to, I wish there was a way that we could actually get you guys online, but either way, we're here for you and we want you to lay them out for us. So let's go.
And before we answer that first question, let me tell you about something really exciting that I'm excited about. Our enterprise architecture program is ready. And tomorrow we're going to hold a webinar on how to become an enterprise architect, how to excel in an enterprise architecture career, and how to get that first enterprise architect job. So sign up. The link is in the chat box, probably in the description below as well. We want you to have the best career ever. And this and cloud architecture are my two favorite careers over the last 25 years. So let's get to that first question.
Let's see what we got, Mike.
I think we've got one from Derek. It's always good to see you.
Hey, Derek.
Big Jerry, good to see you.
From Big Jerry, hey, Mike, wondering if you could shed some light on the smaller, more mundane things I'd be doing as a cloud architect. Like, what are the things that make up the design, present, and sell aspect?
Absolutely, Big Jerry. And I don't think any of these things are mundane. I've had jobs where we have a lot of mundane things, but not this job. This job is a highly strategic job in nature, and that's why there's almost no mundane thing. So here's what we really do. In order to establish a system design or to create a system design, we have to know what problem we're trying to solve. So first thing we need to do in an architecture is really get with our clients' executives and find out what is the vision for their business. Because the systems we design in technology will affect the way people work. And if we design them right, the business improves. If we design them wrong, it's a complete and total failure. And there's far too many projects that are complete and total failures. And they all fail when people don't start with the executives and their goals and their needs and desires. So at the top, we've got a lot of discussions with the executive. Now, the next phase is really finding out how that business works. And what I mean by that is, how does the sales process occur? How does marketing do their thing? How does accounting do their thing? How does the financial team work? How do people in between teams get things done? How is the product designed? How is the supply chain working? And that's what's called the business architecture. We need to see how these things work for today. So that involves a tremendous number of meetings all across the world. That will involve asking a lot of questions. To really get this kind of information, you're going to be entertaining clients, maybe take them to lunch and dinner, give them a little bit of alcohol to get them to talk, for example, if that's appropriate in the country where you live in. But we're going to be doing that. And then we need to work with a client to really design the optimal business processes. Say, if there's a vision of something, how do we get them there? And we have to change the way people work. That's what's regarding digital transformation. It's not just the tech. The tech affects the people. We have to optimize that tech. So again, many, many, many more reasons. Now here we're going to be documenting workflows, both in picture and graphic format. Now, the next phase of what we need to do is really assess our client. What's working? What's not working? What's their network look like? What's their data center look like? What's their cloud look like? What's their multi-cloud environment, which we're going to see in 98% of customers? So what's that look like? And in order to do that, we're going to be having to come in ourselves, ask the right questions. I typically bring in a team of cloud engineers in the cloud architect world. And we've got to get those cloud engineers to go into those systems and look at CPU utilization and look at logs and try to figure out how is the systems today, what's good, what's not. And then from there, I typically have to go and build a team of elite architects, engineers, DevOps engineers, developers, and everybody that's going to be necessary to create the new solution. And in that environment, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to go sell my internal management to give me internal resources, which again involves more documentation and more email and potentially presentations to your company's executives, and we need that team. We need that network architect to focus on the network. We need that security architect to focus on security. We need that IAM architect to focus on IAM in a big global architecture, the kind that I typically work on. We need those DevOps engineers to talk about how much time it's going to take to go implement these things in the cloud engineers. And we also want to get involved with those engineers because their focus is the tech. They are the techiest of the tech. We're very business oriented, so we got to go manage those engineers. So what does that mean? It means selling them to want to work on your team. It means leading them to get the job done and help you respond to the RFIs, RFPs, and RFQs at the same time. And it means bringing out the best in them because they don't work for you, but they're working for you. So that's a very different, challenging kind of leadership. So this requires a lot of your executive presence, a lot of your emotional intelligence. You got to be empathetic to people's situation. You got to be a little bit of a psychologist along the way. I think half the time I practice psychology in my career. So, there's that. Now we have to go figure out who's going to go build this thing. And that's engineers, not us, because we architects don't touch the technology. Now, when the engineers do their thing, as soon as you touch one part of the environment, it affects another part of the environment and how people work. So now we're in another position where we've got to go manage all these stakeholders. So that means lots more meetings, lots more presentations, lots more client entertainment, lots more discussions. And then pretty much from there, we have to set up a strategy on how that organization changes and how they deal with changes. For example, if they hire people or fire people or need to increase their systems or need to change their systems, what are the implications of those? And we have to help think those things through. So realistically speaking, we're talking meetings, facilitating meetings, leading people, leading teams, selling the architecture to the client, which I'll get to in a minute, managing stakeholders, and really using a lot of soft skills to help us entertain clients and things like that. Now, the next thing we've got to do is we've got to sell this architecture that we designed to the management. And let's face it, in my world, we're talking about billion-dollar architectures, but no matter what, no company says, Mike, I want to spend $1 billion, please. How can you spend it for me? I mean, I wish that was the case, but they don't. You have to then build a business case, which means a return on investment capital model, and show the client that their $1 billion they spend with you will yield $2 to $3 billion of business value. And we have to show the return on investment because not only will they not buy it if we don't, the problem is if you've got an extra $50 million, for example, you can invest that $50 million in multiple things. It could be tech, it could be something else. So that business has to make the determination of what they need. So you're going to be writing a business case. Now, at some point, when we're ready to sell this, nobody pays retail price. So this thing goes into negotiations potentially for a month or two. And then you've got to send contracts to legal and you've got to get them involved. So you got to manage those stakeholders as well. So I don't call any of those mundane because these are big, powerful leadership skills, but that's what goes into designing, presenting, and selling. And I hope, Big Jerry, you can see with that why we can't ever touch the technology or we can't focus too hard on any one piece of technology because we have to look at the big picture. Big Jerry, that was a great question. And I hope I answered it. If you got more questions, please ask them.
Yeah, where are the questions at? Come on, guys. Everyone, I know there's got to be something about cloud architecture that you don't know, want to learn, get on track, have a starting point on, because one of the things that I've learned in my career, okay, we've got Campano. Okay, how can I decide which package to choose, Elite Cloud Architecture Bundle or the Cloud Architect Career Development Program?
Capano, what are your goals? So let me tell you the difference between the Cloud Architect program and the Elite Cloud Architect program. Both are excellent programs and both have delivered massive results to our clientele. So let's talk about the difference. The Cloud Architect Career Development Program is everything you need to get your first cloud architect job. It includes all the business, all the technology, all the system design, everything. So that is the focus of the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. The Elite Architect program has not only the Cloud Architect program in it, but it also has a tech leadership program. It's our mini MBA. It includes the critical things from MBAs, and I did 1 3/4 MBA, so I'm pretty familiar with that. Alonzo's got an MBA, Chris has got an MBA. So it's got those main elements of an MBA that you would need. But when I got done my MBA, I still needed about $100,000 of leadership training, executive training, presentation training, sales training. So what we did is we took the main elements of the MBA and all those critical things that are not covered in the MBA, and we popped it into a tech leadership program. So the Cloud Architect Career Development Program and the Tech Leadership Program are really there in that Elite program. And then there's one other special thing. You've got a live interview training program, and I'll tell you why we are infatuated with our interview training program. The interview determines what kind of a job you can get. I've never been on an interview where somebody didn't give me a job offer. And the key is when you're really attractive to an employer, they're more likely to hire you. And the more desirable they are, the more things will pay. And that's why a Mercedes fetches far more money typically than a Chevy. For some reason, people find it more desirable. Personally, I love my Mercedes, but that's neither here nor there, but it's based upon what people perceive things. And let me show you a little bit about why we put so much leadership into that. We assume with the Cloud Architect program, you're going to get a great Cloud Architect job if you do the work, and we see it all the time. But with our Elite program, we're not looking for you to get a Cloud Architect job. We're looking for you either to find yourself a nice enterprise Cloud Architect job or a principal Cloud Architect job. So the Elite program is really about, how do we optimize your career for these bigger jobs that need more business acumen? A few years after your architect career, I'll show you a few. Senior director at Cisco, that's typically a grade 14 role at Cisco. And what you can see is it pays $417 to $698. Why am I showing you this? The biggest determination of your salary has to do with your interview and your sales skills and your business acumen. And that's why we've got so much in there. I'll show you some other careers. Another career like a principal architect at Microsoft, average pay is $379. And I don't want you just to get hired. I want you guys to be so great in that Elite program that you move into principal architect roles in 2 or 3 years because you're great and you're better than the rest. And you can see even for this role, the average pay is $398, effectively $399.9. But you can see that pay range is $300 to $495. A better interview can get you an extra $100,000 in your career. And that's why we use that special brand. Here's another architect job, principal architect job at Google, which pays $508 on average, but the pay range is $394 to $677. So that's determined by how much you can sell. And what do you need to sell? Business acumen as well as sales skills. So that's what's in there. I'll show you one more. Here's a senior director, and a lot of architects will move into these roles if they've got the business acumen later. You can see this is a Palo Alto, a security company. Average pay is $540. But look, if you look at that pay range, it's $425 to $709. So almost $300,000 difference between the top and bottom paid person on the team. So it pays to study the interview. It pays to learn how to read body language. It pays to learn that business acumen and psychology. And that's what's in the Elite Architect program. But are both great programs. Both will help you get to your goals. But I have the Cloud Architect program. We basically offer it at the lowest cost possible, very close to our cost, because we want to change your life. But that Elite Architect program, that's like coming out with an MBA and our architect skill set. to make you better prepared for the future? Great question, by the way.
From Justin Business, what is the difference between the Cloud Architect program and the Enterprise Cloud Architect training?
A wonderful, wonderful question. So let's first look at the difference between the Cloud Architect and the Enterprise Architect. Realistically speaking, if it's a great Cloud Architect, they all do the same thing. So the first thing I want to do is invite you to the webinar tomorrow on the Enterprise Architect program. But let me kind of tell you the difference. In the Cloud Architect world, you're about 20 to 50% technical and the rest of business skills, so think about it that way. In an Enterprise Architect world, you're typically 80+% business and 20% or less technical. So the way we structured the Enterprise Architect program is as follows. We feel that an Enterprise Architect should still have good technical skill, even though it's a business role. So the Enterprise Architect program includes the Cloud Architect program because we have hundreds of hours of system design. And we designed in data centers, which are all we designed in private clouds, we designed in hybrid clouds, we designed in multi-clouds, and we designed in hybrid multi-cloud. And that's what today's enterprise architectures look like anyway. So that program includes the Cloud Architect program, and then it's got an additional session per month where we go into enterprise architecture concepts, mapping workflows, for example, and business process reengineering, and managing stakeholders, and executive presence, and much more of that are required skills for the architect. And the other thing we add to it is we've got another once-a-month professional development program that focuses on these key business and leadership skills people need in cloud architecture or enterprise architecture to move into those principal roles or enterprise architect roles. So we still keep the deep fundamental technologies from the Cloud Architect program, but we do a lot more business in it. And here's the reason why. I want my people to be agile. Here's what I mean by agile. You know, one day you're a cloud architect and you've got a $300,000 job. The next day somebody offers you a $450,000 enterprise architect job. And then out of nowhere, someone offers you a chief architect job. And then the economy gets bad and you get a $400,000 cloud architect job. I want you to be able to do both. And while I don't recommend mixing architecture and engineering because they're different careers, I've gone back and forth from network architect to enterprise architect, back to network architect, back to any business architect. And if you're a really good architect, these roles are very similar. The only subtleness is the differences. So it's a much more business-oriented program.
From Sabello. Hi, Mike. I am thinking of taking on the Cloud Architect training, but hope to later move to the Enterprise Architectural role. Do you think this is a good plan, or would you recommend I go for the EA training?
Well, Sabello, here's my thought. That Cloud Architect training will get you a Cloud Architect job, and we've had people that also got Enterprise Architect jobs. For example, Pritipal got one, but Pritipal worked in tech before. We had Jermaine. Jermaine is awesome. He's a really funny guy. He used to sell landscaping gear. He's about as smart as a whip, and he got his first enterprise architect job with no tech background after our program. We had Wallace Agana, for example, who got an enterprise architect program at JP Morgan Chase, and this was his only, he had no tech background. And then we had people like Angelo get enterprise architect jobs, but he had a great tech background. So there's that. Now, I will tell you, the elite program we have covers many, many more enterprise architect programs. And the enterprise architect program will give you more business, which will both help you get a higher cloud architect job salary, and it'll help you move in there. So, Sabello, since you're in our cloud architect program already, I'm pretty sure you are, send a message to info@gocloudcareers.com, because there's a slight upgrade path to have you in the enterprise architect and the cloud architect program at the same time. It's a very minimal upgrade, and then you can do both, and you're just going to get more architecture training. So, that's what I would realistically talk about and say. So, yes, I would take the Enterprise Architect add-on to your modules. It's going to be fairly simple, and you can get that arranged through info@gocloudcareers.com. I'm sorry, info@gocloudcareers.net. But attend the webinar tomorrow, and we can answer questions on that live. But I am really, really excited. Now, if you'd asked me, should I take an engineering and architecture class? At the same time, when we had both engineering and architecture programs, I told everybody no, because they're very different skill sets. But these are complementary skill sets and skill sets that are going to be great for you. And I really think it'll help you build an incredible career. Isabel, if you've got any further questions, please let me know.
Douglas, good afternoon.
Well, Douglas, Alonzo's system does some packet loss, but I'm so happy to see you. So Douglas, can you please reiterate and discuss how the pre-sales, strategy, and true architecture roles are completely different from implementation, building, and day two roles? I wish you understood this sooner. Douglas, I wish so many people understood this sooner. Douglas, I'd say 80% of the people that I've trained have wanted to become architects, and they did all these engineering cloud projects, and they took all these engineering certifications. In the end, they can't be hired for architect jobs because they don't have any architect skills. So let's talk about the difference. Here's what an engineer does. And I love engineers. Engineers are day two people. They are implementation people. The engineer will take the architecture that you give them and they build it. And whether they build it with Terraform as infrastructure as code, whether they install applications on Linux machines or Windows machines, cloud engineers do those kind of things. Whether they're automating with a Python script, with a bash shell script, or a Windows PowerShell script, and setting up and configuring the systems. That's the implementation. That is what cloud engineers do. DevOps engineers do some of this, and sysadmins do some of this stuff too. They are hands-on positions. The architect job is not a hands-on position. Knowing how to code doesn't give you any skills related to how to design an architecture. It teaches you how to code. It's kind of like me speaking multiple languages, which I do. Just because I speak multiple languages doesn't mean I'm going to know how to design a system to improve a bank's performance. They're totally unrelated skill sets, which is why we retrain engineers all the time. So here's the thing with pre-sale strategy. We have to find out what our customers actually need. And that goes back to learning their business. Imagine going to a doctor's office and people saying, I'm certified, you need this, this, and this without an exam. And, that's what we see a lot of the certified people do. They don't know how to answer the right questions. They don't understand the business because certifications have nothing to do with architecture. They're all engineering. They're all how to. And architecture is about the why. Why are we changing this? What are the business needs? How do we optimize that business? But we have to justify that with a rationale. So we have to start by finding out the client's needs. What are their pain points? No different than a doctor. If a patient came in and said, Mike, I have a sore throat, I'd ask them about their sore throat. What makes their sore throat better? What makes their sore throat worse? I would examine them and I'd say, hey, you've got pharyngitis. Here's some amoxicillin, or here's some Biaxin, or here's some whatever's necessary to treat the drug. But I wouldn't just give the drug. So the architect job, just like medicine, starts with that assessment of what are the organization's needs. It also includes a lot about what is the vision for that business, because today a business could be doing one thing and tomorrow it could be doing something else. And we don't want to design a system for the business the way it used to be. We have to design it to be in the future. Now, what's this involve? This involves a lot of questions with executives, a lot of questions with department heads. And if you're a good architect, you're even asking the people that do the everyday jobs because they often know more about the experience than the executives. So it involves a lot of conversations, and that takes a tremendous amount of meetings. Now, Douglas, most people really don't want to give you information, especially if they think giving you information could potentially result in a new architecture, which causes them to lose their job. So this is where you've got to have some very strong emotional intelligence and really stellar communication skills and create a rapport with the people you're working with. And that typically involves meeting with them, spending time, helping them out, doing them favors. And you typically need to be taking your clients to lunch or dinner or drinks. I mean, in 1 year, I practically spent $100,000 on my corporate credit card entertaining clients. That's how much entertainment of clients we do in this role. So then we have to map out the strategy. And an architecture is really a strategic blueprint. It's how do we optimize your business? And a good architecture includes business process re-engineering, so you redesign the way the business works according to the organization's vision. And then you design technology systems that support the vision of the business. What is that business trying to do? What is that business trying to achieve? So for that, that's kind of the strategy. And then, we have to, if we're pre-sales, we kind of have to help the client want our solutions. So very often a client will release what's called an RFI, RFP, or RFQ, a request for information, a request for pricing, a request for quote, and they'll submit it to 2 or 3 vendors. Now, if you're strategic in your sales and you spend enough time with the client in the sales, you can influence the RFP process so the client actually requests things that your product and service do better than anybody else's. So that's part of the strategic sales strategy. And then it all comes down to system design. And then it's about designing the tech. And let's face it, it's all data center tech. We can call it cloud tech, we can call it data center tech, but it's really the same thing because the cloud is just somebody else's data center that you run space in. So then we have to start aligning the network, because without the network, which is the main infrastructure, nothing works. And then we've got to design the servers and what they look like, or the containers and the microservices strategy, whatever's being appropriate. Then we need to design the business applications. We don't code them, but what kind of applications are going to support their business needs. Then from there, we've got to bring in some security people and big data people and AI people in today's world in order to make sure that things are good and the system runs the way they want and the business is taken and everything else. Now, at that point, we got to write proposals, we got to write some documentation, and then we're going to give lots of presentations to get the client to adopt the solution that we want. And then after that, well, then it's negotiation of the deal. And once that deal is closed, then the customer says, Mike, I want this. It's a handshake, and we go to the next client. And another team of people comes in. There's typically something like a service delivery executive that will lead the team. They'll bring in some project managers, and then they bring in engineers. In many cases, the engineers are in another country because it doesn't matter where people code or configure. Other times they're local, and then they go build it. And once it's built, the engineers on the build team also go. And then it gets turned over to a maintenance team, which is typically called sysops. And they manage it. The sysops people, which is an engineering job, patch the systems and do maintenance on the systems. And then once that's done, like for example, and they manage it long term, but if there's a problem or if a system breaks, then it goes to a tech support team. So as you can see, I talked about 4 teams of people right now in that architecture process. And that's the thing. That's why architects can't touch the business. And in most real architect jobs, meaning AWS, Azure, Cisco, IBM, Google, KPMG, Capgemini, Accenture, Deloitte, any real company that really values technology, the architects are not allowed to touch the technology. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So, Douglas, thank you for the question. I hope I answered your question, and please feel free to ask more, Douglas.
Big Jerry, thanks for answering my question, earlier question, Mike. So I've got absolutely no tech background, but I have extensive business and customer experience. Do you think the architect role would be suitable?
I think the architect role, Big Jerry, is suitable for anyone. I'll give you some examples. Daniel Bosu didn't graduate high school, but we trained him and got him hired at JP Chase. Pierre Dassault was working on sailboats, but we got him hired as a solution architect. Lenny Burnett, who I have the deepest respect for, came to us as a video editor, and he was a good video editor, and now he's a great solution architect. Lots of respect for him. Let's talk about Noah Parker, for example. He was a student of ours. He was actually a social worker helping people get insurance and benefits and support from the government, etc., based on financial needs. And now he's working as a solution architect after we train him. Let's take a mental health tech like Jennifer Ema. We trained her and got her a solution architect job at JP Chase. Or Balwinder, who was a stay-at-home mom for the last 8 years. We got her a phenomenal job at Microsoft as a cloud solution architect. Or people like Yvonne Tamba, who was a college student that we got hired by AWS. So kind of keep this in the back of your mind. You can do anything, Big Jerry 23. And the fact that you have some customer experience work and business, that's great. You're going to be better prepared than if you came from an engineering background. That's the reality. And I'll tell you, when I get a business person like Wallace Agana, he was a business person. He was a sales rep. You should have seen the great enterprise architect job he got as his first tech job as well. So you're going to be great. I also work with engineers that have deep tech backgrounds. And, we have to change their thinking model. We have to get them from thinking about the tech to thinking about the business. And Big Jerry 23, that is almost as hard sometimes as learning the technology itself, because what happens is when we are somebody for so long, and now we've got to be somebody different, it's really hard to be somebody different. So you'd be phenomenal, Big Jerry 23, and I'd love to work with you. And the reason I like working with business people is architecture is business. Let me explain what I mean when I say architecture is business. The job of the CEO of a business is to architect the strategy of the business for the future. You know what a chief information officer is? Really, it's an enterprise architect that helps the organization adopt technology to the business needs. Want to be a VP of sales? You have to architect the sales organization and the sales processes to make yourself successful. So if you're coming from business, you probably know a lot more about architecture than if you came from technology, because engineers, and I love engineers, they're amazing people. They take my architectures, which are pictures and diagrams and documents, and turn it into reality. I mean, seriously, major important people in the role. But when that's your whole life is focused on the technology and you must zoom in for it, sometimes when you've got a role where you're no longer focusing on the tech anymore, barely, and you're focusing on the business and the presentation and the sales and this and this and this, some tech people don't like it. And you can see those people, they get architect jobs, and then a month later or 2 months later or even a year later, they go back to engineering because they miss being hands-on. Why don't you come to tomorrow's webinar on how to become an enterprise architect? And that's more of a business role along with technology. And you can do that or the cloud architect or both at the same time, because our enterprise architect program focuses heavily on cloud architecture as well. And I think you'll love it. This architect job is the best job I've ever had, and I've had lots of different jobs in my life. Hope I answered your question. We go to the next one.
Rolfie. Hi, Mike and Alonzo. Can you speak on the studying schedule you recommend to your students to be able to finish the cloud architecture course closer to a 6 months time frame?
So, Ralphie, I'll give you some general guidelines, but I want you to remember this. The average cloud architect salary right now is $237,000 a year. A really good architect with a couple of years experience, that's great, could be earning $400,000 or $500,000 a year. So why am I saying this? A physician earns $300,000 a year, but they go to school for 8 years, do a 4-year residency and internship, and take on $300,000 in debt, for $500,000 in debt, just to get the fresh job to earn what a cloud architect gets. At the same time, we've got a lawyer who goes to school for 7 years, racks up $300,000 to $500,000 in debt, and earns about $100,000 a year versus the $300,000 from a cloud architect would. So it takes time to learn this. The reason people are paying you for this is it's a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of knowledge in technology, and it's an extraordinary amount of knowledge in business. So I told you that. Now, how would you speed it up? You would dedicate more time each day to going through the program. As much time as you possibly could before your brain gets saturated and you can't take in any more information. So potentially, and that means studying 2 to 3 times per day. Maybe watching some videos in the morning, maybe doing some of the homework assignments in the afternoon. And when you watch one of our videos or read one of our required readings or read the reading in there, if there's something you don't understand, go look it up like a good student. The other thing, Ralphie, is we've got a global community. Work with some people in the global community, not the newbies. Work with the more senior people. If you work with the newbies, they haven't figured out what they need yet. If you work with the senior people, they can bring you up and you're helping them anyway. Because when you work with the senior people, they have to communicate the idea and the thought to you, which really helps them go. Because architecture, that's half of the job is communication. And by you working with them, you'll be like a sponge and learn with them offline. So that's what I would do. Work with the teams, and I encourage all our students to work together. In the Navy, they talk about having a swim buddy. When you go swimming, you bring your swim buddy at all times, and you take care of your swim buddy. I tell my people to have a Go Cloud Careers buddy, at least one, sometimes 2. And we've got people working all over the world in teams, and the results are extraordinary. So that's what I would do. I'd put as much time into it. And yes, you could potentially be hired in 6 months. It might take you 8 months. It could even take you 12. But the real key is that you change your life. And the reason I say it could take 6, it could take 12, is I don't know the speed that you actually learn. Every one of us learns at slightly different paces, but we don't quit on you if you don't quit on you. So we'll give you the time and you'll do absolutely wonderful. But that's how I would speed it up. And look, I've had people speed it up. I had Richard Afukar get hired by AWS in less than 3 weeks. I had Delroy Batt, who got his first job in less than 3 weeks. I recently trained someone from the perfume background, and he got himself an incredible job within about 4 or 5 months. I had Joe Millen. Now, he had a tech background, but we got him hired by AWS as a senior solution architect in about a month. So it is possible. But I like to say 6 to 12 months because I want to make sure that you have the time and you do the work right. Hope I answered your question. Please feel free to ask more. Hi, Mike. What is the level a cloud architect needs to understand BGP? Very well. And here's the reason. If you don't understand BGP, then you won't be able to direct your traffic where it needs to go. And then everything will fall apart. But, learning BGP isn't that hard. It's only hard when you're taught by people that aren't experts in BGP. So I spent about 10 years as a subject matter expert in BGP, and I can get people to understand BGP very quickly because I know it so well. I can explain it in the most simple terms. But networking is absolutely critical for cloud architecture because if you don't have a network, nothing can talk to each other. And effectively, you've just got a bunch of expensive systems running that do absolutely nothing. So BGP knowledge is strong. Don't worry about it. We can get you there. I've gotten people trained in BGP that work everywhere, and we'll get you there. So you have to understand it very well, like a network engineer or a network architect, but we can easily get you there. And you can easily learn it. There's lots of good documentation on BGP. There's the Internet Routing Architectures book from Bassam Halabi. It's a bit old, but it's quite good. You can read all the Internet Engineering Task Force RFCs. We actually have a free white paper on BGP. Chris, if you're behind the scenes, if you can provide a link to that introduction to BGP, and I think you're going to do real well just in business. It's a great career, and don't let BGP scare you. We're going to be wrapping up at approximately 3 p.m. today, so please ask your questions. Potentially go a little bit longer if there's a bunch of questions. That's in about 15 minutes, unless you give me lots of good questions, because I really want to help you. Chris, we can move to the next one. Cookie Monster. Do some cloud architect career paths require security clearance, i.e. a cloud security architect? No, that's not exactly the truth. The security architects generally don't need security clearance. Who needs security clearance? People that work on government agencies and top secret projects. Want to do the work for the US military? You will need security clearance. So it's typically related to high security government positions that require security clearance, but it typically doesn't have anything to do with the security architect role. I hope that makes sense, and that's a really great question. Chris, I think we can move to the next one. Anoop, I have a solution architect professional and DevOps certifications, but your LinkedIn is empty. Recommendations. Is there any way I can still get a cloud job? What level should I attempt? So let's take this down, Anoop, and bring it into 2 things. Right now, you've told me you have certifications. Certifications are not going to be enough to get any job, but skills will help you get any job. It has nothing to do with your recommendations on LinkedIn. It has every bit to your skills. So, Anoop, could you tell me which cloud job you actually desire? And then I can give you the list of skills. I learned a long, hard lesson 25 years ago when I got 6 certifications when I wanted to go from a non-tech career to tech. I had a Cisco Certified Network Professional, which is about 5 times the difficulty of the AWS Solutions Architect Professional. I had a CCNA. I had a Cisco Certified Design Professional, a Cisco Certified Design Associate, Microsoft Certified Professional, and MCSE. And nobody cared. And then I spoke to 50 different recruiters and asked them, what do you want in the perfect network architect? They told me, I learned those skills, and poof, I had a great job. So the key is, yes, you can get a great job. But the question actually is, what job do you want? I think you actually answered what job you want. You think with your 8 years of experience in data and engineering and architect, cloud architect would be a perfect role. So Anoop, what is your level of business acumen? What is your level of leadership skills? What is your level of executive presence? When was the last time you did an ROI model for your client? When was the last time you spoke to the C-suite? When was the last time, for example, you delivered a presentation to a group of executives? When was the last time you managed stakeholders in a global organization with 200,000 and 300,000 people? If the answer is yes, you're ready. And that certification, which will get you an interview, and then you'll have those architect skills and you'll be great. Now, if you don't, what you have is certifications and data engineering. And data engineering has absolutely nothing to do with cloud architect work. Data engineering is just about data. The cloud architect work is about the network, the security, the servers, the containers, the container orchestration, the storage area network, the private cloud, the hybrid multi-cloud. And then it's figuring out what kind of applications. For example, when we get somebody from an AWS background, they think, let me use DynamoDB as a NoSQL database, or they think Amazon Aurora because they were taught that way. The problem actually becomes that we can't use any of this thing. So I think you said one more thing. You're up to date with that. Thank you. I was a bit rusty on my coding skills that made you secure. Thank you for helping me aside. There's no coding Anoop in architecture. None. Zero. This is not engineering. This is architecture. So don't worry about the coding. You should be in good shape. Bold J. You're moving away from UX architecture. Do you mean designing Unix systems, or do you mean user interface? I would like to move into cloud architecture. Have worked with enterprise architects, or is there a good job? Is there a job that's good while I learn? You love presenting to the C-suite? Well, if you're already working in user interface or UA architecture, keep working on it until you develop the architect skills. You can still do that. And that's, one of the things that surprised me when I came from medicine to tech many years ago. Nobody's born a cloud architect. They go through from training. Nobody's born an airplane pilot. They go to flight school. Nobody's born a physician. And here's the great news. You can do anything you want. Anything. It's just a matter of getting the right education to support your role. So keep working in UA architecture if you can. And from there, pick up the cloud architecture skills, get the right training, and you'll be there. The fact that you love presenting to the C-suite, you're already going to be in good shape. So what you'll need to learn is as follows: networking, data center, security. And by data center, we're talking about servers, server virtualization, containers, storage area networks, things like block storage, object storage, file storage. And once you learn those and how to put the pieces together, you're going to be in exceptional shape. So good. You're already at least halfway there. Now it's a matter of just getting the system design skills. And I would work with someone, we do it, but there's others that are out there, but that'll teach you how to put the pieces and parts together for that architecture. And Bull J, you will have a great job that way. Chris, we can go to the next one. Mike, in your experience, how does a cloud architect maintain and move along with a project with the engineers giving the building? So it's a great question, Valerie. So I want you to think about it like this. If you went to the doctor and the doctor, for say back pain, and the doctor gave you some non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and they said, I want you to go to physical therapy. And I wrote a prescription for physical therapy that says back pain, diagnose and treat. There's nothing other than the physical therapist every 4 to 6 weeks will send me a letter that's informing me of the status. Same thing happens in architecture, Valerie. Let's say I work for AWS or Azure or Google or Cisco or IBM or Microsoft or Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG. It doesn't matter. My job as an architect is to design it. Once the client says yes, I have nothing to do with that ever again until the next time they need new architecture and they call me back. What will ultimately happen, Valerie, is a service delivery executive will come in, and they're the owner of the implementation. And the service delivery, the service delivery executive will bring in project managers, multiple ones to manage the project stage. They will bring in developers, cloud engineers, DevOps engineers, IAM people. They'll bring in big data people. They'll bring in AI people. They'll bring them all in, and they manage the implementation. And that's the key with architecture. We can't be thinking about the implementation other than the plan for it. We got to go manage the next customer, and we can't think about this. So we have nothing to do with the implementation. Another team comes in, and we are off to the races. Kind of like a doctor when they go to the hospital and they go see their patient and do rounds on the patient. The first time they write the admission orders, and potentially they don't come back for a day or two. The other people take care of it. But in this case, somebody comes in the service delivery exec and they own the deployment. And then we go on to the next client. So we're not even part of it, Valerie. Cookie Monster, my favorite character. What are some of the current and future trends in cloud computing other than AI? Well, multi-cloud architectures. It started with single clouds, but now 98% of organizations are multi-cloud. But now you're going to see a lot more hybrid cloud and hybrid multi-cloud, and here's the reason why. Organizations have realized that they get much higher performance in the data center, and the data center is typically substantially cheaper for systems that run all the time at peak capacity. So organizations are taking their frequently accessed stuff and their most important stuff, and they're bringing it in-house to their data center. And data center revenue sales are actually going up right now, not just cloud stuff. So, and at the same time, certain things really do well in the public cloud. The auto scaling of a website is beautiful for the cloud. Disaster recovery on the cloud offers more options that are the best options in the world. And then different cloud providers do different things well. For example, in the artificial intelligence world, Microsoft is by far the leader right now, and Google is second behind them. So, it would be normal for a business to put their high-performance systems in their data center with a Nutanix cloud or an OpenStack cloud, maybe pop their website on AWS and Azure, maybe use Google for disaster recovery, or maybe, put some artificial intelligence in Microsoft or Google while they use AWS for many of their things, and they use their own data center for high-performance computing. So that's really where we're headed. We're headed to these more distributed systems where the customer can maximize their performance, maximize their availability, and minimize their cost. Great question, Cookie Monster. Okay, Chris, we can go to the next one. So clearly, Alonzo is the only person on our team that has a single internet service provider. I actually have three because, one service provider is nothing. And that's why I would never use a single cloud for anything that matters. And that's why in networking, if we had two links, we wouldn't get them both from Verizon or both from AT&T. We'd get one on AT&T and one Verizon. And that way, when one service provider goes down, the other one's good. So I'll be making sure Alonzo gets the second internet service provider after today. Anyway, this is the fun of technology. So, Chris, you can bring in the next question. Lopez, how well does tech sales translate to cloud architecture? You have an opportunity to join a tech company and you feel it would look good on your resume as someone who has not worked in tech. Lopez, if you have the opportunity to work in tech sales, I encourage you to do so. Tech sales are an unbelievable skill set. They will substantially increase your earnings. And I actually think you might actually like it. So I love tech sales. Now, tech sales are a good career on their own. And what are you going to be doing in tech sales? You're going to be speaking to executives about their goals. You're going to be managing stakeholders in tech sales. You're going to be potentially leading teams of engineers in tech sales, especially with proof of concepts. The engineers and the architect and the sales rep will work together on leading a proof of concept. The engineers do the proof of concept. We design the systems and keep the engineers happy. You're going to be delivering presentations in sales, lots of communication, lots of client entertainment. So Lopez, you're in our architect program. Consider that to be a great sales training program. And, truth be told, I'll show you. Sales pays well too. Real well. And you find that you absolutely love sales, you might actually stay in sales. And I'll give you some salaries for some basic sales reps, or some quality sales reps, I should say. And I'll show you, because I usually have a couple that I print out from Glassdoor. Here you go. Here's a global account manager. That's a sales rep. Average pay at AWS is $330,000 with a pay rate of $225 to $441. And that's really based upon how much you can sell and how good you are at sales. So sales is the key to earning more as an architect. So I think this will be some of the best work you can do. You combine that sales experience with our architecture training program. I'm excited to see all the great things you can accomplish. Chris, we can go to the next one if there is one more. Okay, we can get to Anoop's question. Anoop's question is, how soon will the IT job market open up to more vacancies? Feels desperate as it is. So, Anoop, if you have the right skills, you can still be hired right now. There are still jobs for technology professionals. They're hiring the best of the best with the best training and the best skill set. So the job market isn't terrible. It's not great. Now, I will tell you, I've only had 5 jobs because, I like the companies. I delivered a good job for the company. And there were 20 layoffs while I worked. And every time there was a layoff, I got promoted. And, the key is in tough times, when you join a company in tough times and you deliver and you help them out of tough times, they'll be there for you. So, if you're not getting opportunities, first, 50% of it is the job market right now. But the other 50% is the way you're building your brand. It'll have to do with your resume. It'll have to do with your LinkedIn profile. It will have to do with the way people perceive you. I'll tell you, for example, I get people send me resumes every day and they say I'm a cloud architect and a cloud engineer. I tell them, if you don't know the difference between a cloud architect and a cloud engineer, I can't hire you, because if you don't know what the job is and you don't know that you're talking about a turkey versus a lion, clearly the person doesn't actually know the job. So check and make sure your branding is good. And truth be told, the economy is mediocre right now. There are still jobs out there, but to get them, you got to be the best. You got to be great. And that means mastery of your interview skills, mastery of your leadership skills, mastery of your executive presence, and just going out there and showing them you are a rock star. But there's still jobs out there, Anoop. There's always jobs. Lopez, thanks. You will continue to build in your architecture skills while joining a tech sales team. Wonderful, Lopez. I want the absolute best for you. And I actually think that is something that is incredibly good for your future. Okay, well, let me leave you with these things. Get your free architect job guide. It's a completely free document we wrote for you, and the link is in the description below. It will show you what is the architect, specifically the cloud architect, all those cloud architect skills that you need, and how to be great. At the same time, I would love you to come to our Enterprise Architect webinar tomorrow. We will cover the role, the skills. We'll talk about how we train cloud architects, but no matter what, you'll at least know the skills. And not only will we present for 30 minutes, we'll be on Zoom. And because we'll be on Zoom, you can ask us questions face to face, and we will happily answer anything we can to assist you in your career. Really enjoyed spending some time with you all today. I hope we gave you some help so you understand these roles, so you can go out there and get the optimal training for you, learn the actual things to study, and go out there and build the career of your dreams. I'm going to say one last thing. One of the biggest things that I've found in my 20 years of coaching technology professionals that keep people getting from their goals is themselves and fear. Let's face it, when it comes to a life change like changing career, we're all scared. When it comes from going to engineer to architect, we're scared. When it comes from someone that's practiced internal medicine to a network architect, they're scared. When you leave college and you're not sure if you're ready to get a job, you're scared. But that's where the tough keep going. And that's where you have the opportunity to win. So be courageous. Courageous is not the absence of fear. It's what you do in spite of the fear that's going to get you to your goals. So it's been wonderful to speak with you today. I hope you all had a great time. I hope we helped you with some questions, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully tomorrow on our How to Get Your First Enterprise Architect Job webinar. Take care, everyone. I look forward to seeing you soon.